Hey everyone, Julian here today. I'm going to show you how to make trance, X Coast, DJ Heartstring style. As usual, you can get the full project files, samples, MIDI, presets, everything from this video is available at the top of the description on my website. Definitely go grab that. It's a really great way to help support me. I don't make a whole lot off of this channel. If you guys enjoy these videos and want to see more, definitely click that link and grab it. Thank you so much for the support, everybody, and let's dive in. Alright, so we're at 145 BPM, and the first thing you'll probably notice here is I kind of have these like color coded. So this is to show you how simple this really actually could be, right? Because when you hear like a whole loop of this, it could seem complicated, but you know, if you really break it down into these groups, like here, for example, the low end, you know, what's actually happening there is pretty simple. Same thing with the drums. You know, there's really only two synths here. Three if you count the bass, right? So it actually is pretty simple if you break it down into these groups. And I think that's the best way to think about it. So starting with the low end, we got the bass line, and particularly the low end you really do want to group together. Like when I'm working on the kick and the bass, I really try not to just do the bass or just the kick, but kind of work on them together. It really is like one thing, the groove that's created there, right? So with the bass line, this is playing the chord progression. So we got F sharp major, D sharp minor, A sharp minor, B major. So it's kind of honestly almost like an indie rock chord progression or something like that, right? But it's a nice chord progression underneath all these other synths. The other thing with the bass is you'll notice the notes are not, like I made these a little bit shorter. And that, let me just show you what happens if I put those back to like the normal just eighth note length. And now I'll make it shorter again. See how it grooves better? So that's a really tiny detail, but it's going to make a big difference. And you can sit there and just like, you know, play with it until you find the right length. But there we go. And then we have, for the actual bass sound, it's made with operator. Now, the reason why I like using operator for these is because of this simple thing right here. You see how this has the phase and then this R? So what that means is phase re-triggering, meaning you can have it start on the exact same part of this square waveform in this case every single time it plays. You know, with like wavetable or something like that, it doesn't do that. And if I turn that off, check out what happens. Hear how it's like a slightly different bass note every time? So you don't want that. This is a big thing with these trance basses that people don't talk about, is you need a synth where you can easily re-trigger the phase. Now most synths you can do that. Wavetable, I don't know how to do it exactly, but with this you can just get right in. So we got a square wave, a little bit of FM from some sine waves, and then a low pass filter with an envelope. This is also something you want to put a lot of time into, is just like the right envelope, because that'll impact the groove a lot too if I like start messing with that. You can see, you know, these little things make a big difference with these sounds. And then we have an EQ, cutting out a bit of high end that you weren't really hearing or needing really. But what happens there is if you cut that out, it'll make it so this doesn't crunch like with all the high end as much. Versus like, see how that noise gets a little bit more crunchy if you just let it all be together there. And then we're also cutting the low bass that you wouldn't really hear, but would make your mix muddier. Then we have the kick. So it's two layers. It's this basically two 909 kicks. This tech house kick here is a 909 kick. So what we're doing is we got the highs, right, from this one, just this 909. You can see I lined up the start time. We're using EQ3, converting it to mono, making sure there's no weird phasing happening. And then for the low end, we have this, which is also just a big 909. Right, but you can see I'm taking just the mids and lows. And then I'm using this kick pusher here. This is this overdrive preset I made. You can copy it if you get this project file in the description. But you can just put this on any kick. Like I'll just put it even on the whole group. Check out without it. And then with it. You can see if you put this on just a little bit, it'll really push your kick as much as you need. So I've got that, and then I'm just converting this to mono. And then on the group there, just again making sure it's mono, because when you start layering together different samples like this, you can get phasing stuff. So that's why we're doing so much for the mono. And also because like the EQ3, sometimes EQing stuff can mess up the phase too, oddly enough. So we're just like being really careful about that. And then we have the drums, which starts with the main 2 layers, you know, just a good hi-hat and a good clap. Which you can see, these sit really well with the kick, right? It's all chosen to fit together. That's another reason, too, why you want to cut the highs out of that bass, because you're getting this blast of high end. You know, that's hitting from this hi-hat at the exact same time as that bass. So if you just let that rock without that, see, it's a little bit crunchier, especially once you master this. So we've got those, and then, so it's really just, you want to start with those, and then it's just bringing in different things in the background. Like, I've got this rave loop, which you can see goes really well with the groove that we've already established here. Like, it all has the groove together. It's not just a random rave loop. It's chosen. Right, so we've got that, and then what's happening is I'm high passing it, and then there's the shaper here, which is mapped to the gain of a utility. So it's basically kind of just ducking out the 1, and the 2, and the 3, and the 4. As if it was sidechained, but you have much more control here, and you can really, especially with this, like, you can really shape the groove, because this is very different from this. Right, so it's kind of like just being able to control that more than if you were sidechaining it. Then we just have a few background hi-hats. Right, you can, a little bit of swing there. We have this bell. This is also really popular in these kinds of tracks. Right, that's just like in there. And that's really all the drums, right? You can see it's mostly just stuff in the high end to just add some nice like shuffle and not get in the way of the bass or the mid-range and mid-lows of the synths. Which, next we have this lead. So for this, for the MIDI here, this is, you can hear it's grooving off of the bass. Now we're in the key of A sharp minor here, so we're using actually only a few notes from that scale. You can hear just the root note, the 5th, 6th, and we're really like playing with, right, that resolution between the 5th going to the 6th, since they're 1 semitone apart, and then going up here to the minor 3rd, which also that's good coming. You can see those like all go well together. So it's really just like this kind of like melancholic, honestly super jazzy melody, you know. This is a minor key, but you could also kind of look at this as F sharp major and like just doing a lot of like major 7th stuff around that. Right, and then for the sound, it's made with wavetable, so we're using a saw wave with a bunch of pulse width and some sync. And then I also have this wavetable, this FM fold. So just kind of like taking, you know, saw waves or square waves, still using that like trancey kind of lead, but doing little things to make it different, like the sync and the pulse width or the FM fold wavetable here. Just little stuff to kind of make it sound different than just like that standard, you know, detuned super saw. We've got an envelope, which is on the position, the wavetable position of oscillator 2, as well as the unison amount. So that's another thing about the sound. If I turn that off, it's really subtle, but it just kind of makes this move a little bit different. Because it's super detuned at the start of the attack, and then it goes down with that envelope. And then we have a bit of delay and reverb, right? Just giving it some space. I have another one of these shapers mapped to a utility. You can see this one is really tight. Again, just being able to really shape that groove. Like if I play it with the kick, you can see, you know, depending on how I change this, it really shapes how this sounds. So it's a big thing. And then we have this kind of like rhythmic pad, I'll call it. So this again, I'm calling it the Rhythmic pad. I've heard this in a lot of these tracks, and to do it, it's actually not that hard. You're basically gonna, you just kind of know what key you're in, know like, or at least not even maybe know, but just have a picture of the scale or whatever so you can follow it. But in this case, we're in A sharp minor, and it's just creating a rhythm like this dun 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 dun, and then the also like that on top of it. Right? Like this is a rhythm, and then this is a rhythm. And then you're just kind of plugging notes from the scale into that, right? And finding little, movements like that. Like this. Right? Like that's happening on top of this while you're getting. So it's actually pretty simple, but it's just like a little bit complex to follow the scale, I guess. Again, not really that hard. And then down here we go down to the 6th, this F sharp major. And it's the same rhythm, but also you'll notice one little trick here to make this resolve really well. What are we doing? We're walking right back up, and the last note there is the root note. And also, even this, playing this minor 7th here, is like gonna make that walk back up really nicely. So it just like hops right back into the loop every time. These, if you're gonna do these, you gotta make sure it resolves. And then for the sound on this one, it's also made with wavetable. So this is actually kind of like experimenting with a sine wave and then noise unison. So you get this really interesting texture. And I've got this envelope, which is a bit longer than the last one I showed you, but this envelope is on the unison. Right, so you can hear that's just making that warp a little bit more. It's a really good technique for these trancey synths. A lot of people don't talk about this. Like, if you just make like the unison sounds and a unison saw wave or whatever, you're gonna make pretty boring sounds. Once you start putting envelopes or maybe even LFOs on the unison, that's when you really can make some like futuristic different stuff with this that doesn't just sound like all the other tracks. We've got a bit of reverb, high pass filter, and that's it. Really don't need too much effects. And then the last thing we have down here are some background effects. Now this vocal, so we got this little noise here made with operator, and then this vocal atmosphere. So for the noise, what's happening is it's actually just a pretty simple, like, white noise with a bandpass filter automating down, right? Like, honestly, pretty standard stuff. But see, what makes it is it's also, while this is going down, there's a high pass filter right after there going up. So it just kind of makes it disappear like into the void because you're taking out the highs and the lows very smoothly. As opposed to if you don't have that, just letting it like you don't want all that in your track. So you just want to do that. Then we got a bit of reverb. Another shaper, you can see this actually, I'm pretty sure I just copied the one from this. Once you make one of these, you can pretty much just copy it around your track, and then tweak it a little bit as needed. And then we have the vocal atmosphere. Now this one, I will say, it has a few overtones when you play it on its own that you're like, wait, does that really work? But it fits really well in the track because I'm high passing it. And you can see it just fits like perfectly in there when it's the whole mix. And that actually is something important too, is like, your sounds, it's not just about making a good sound that just sounds good on its own. Make sounds so it sounds good with the whole track. Now for this one, so this has just got a shaper. It's a little confusing because the shaper's here, but actually this utility's here. So we got the reverb going into the utility, which is making it like volume shape. And then we got a high pass filter. Right? And that's going to really actually make this fit in the track. Just like the noise, you don't want all that, like, stuff in there, right? And And that's gonna be it for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed. As always, make sure to like this video as well as subscribe, and let me know what you think of this video in the comments. Like I said in the beginning, you can get this full project file, samples, MIDI, presets, literally everything from this video is available at the top of the description. Don't miss out while it's still available. Thank you so much for the support, everybody. You know, every little bit helps, but it's also about supporting you guys, giving you really high quality templates for the music that you really want to make the best music of your life. Link is at the top of the description. Thanks for the support, and I'll see you tomorrow with another video.